talk about wealth of knowledge. You bring it all together.
Put the work in now to get yourself structured and organized and documented.
We need to grow this top line.
There is no one size fits all for this industry.
Hey Restorers, thanks for checking out a fresh episode of the Restoration Masterclass. This season, we are talking about profitability and the different elements of creating a profitable restoration business. And today we're diving into a topic that we haven't dove into yet this season, I don't think. And we're talking about software and how to properly adopt and implement your software to get the most out of it. I know that is a huge pain point and problem point for restorers. Onboarding is not so fun sometimes, and it takes buy-in from the whole team, which can be really difficult depending on the makeup of your team and how you are bringing in a new platform or whatever that may be. And also a lot of restorers just aren't fully utilizing the full capabilities of the platforms that they're paying a lot of money to be part of. So I'm excited to be joined by Ryan Pritchard. He's with Can-Am Systems, or PSA. That's probably how you know them better. Ryan, thank you very much for being here. I'm going to have you introduce yourself first for people who don't know you yet.
Perfect. Well, thanks for having me, Michelle. Again, my name is Ryan Pritchard. I'm the sales manager at PSA. Been in the biz since 2010, so working in the insurance restoration space, specifically in software and technology. We actually started as an accounting system. In fact, PSA at one point stood for Proven Solutions Accounting, which is a much longer way of saying things, and we shorted it to PSA. And since then, we have kind of branched into an more ERP system where we've included things like job management and CRM and customer portals. So we're now known as Proven Software Applications, which is still a very big mouthful, but shortened it to PSA, and been working in the industry ever since.
Perfect. Okay. So diving right into our topic. So what's the number one issue you encounter with restoration companies when it comes to software adoption? What is like their number one pain point or hurdle that they run into?
Well, believe it or not, and they may not like to admit it, but change in any capacity is difficult, especially when you're not only changing the process in which you do things, but you're also having to maybe record things that you didn't have to before. This is an industry that loves spreadsheets and paper and keeping things up in their heads. And so just changing the philosophy of what a day-to-day operations look like, I think, is difficult for a lot of people who are used to this kind of routine approach. Hey, we've done this in the past this way and it worked for us. We're fine. Now we have to organize better. We have to document better. And that change is difficult for a lot of people to, maybe I'm not tech savvy, maybe I'm not used to recording this information. So there's a lot of resistance, not just for software, but obviously for any technology based or equipment, or I have to use this new tool. That change is always difficult, for any organization.
So how important is it to be purposeful when you're choosing your software? Like, there are so many options out there. I think you and I can both vouch that every trade show you walk, there's another new technology option out there, and they are not all the same, and every company is different. So every company has different needs as well. So how important is it to find a software that matches your needs, and what would be some of those needs that companies should think about as they're choosing a platform, instead of maybe just being like, oh, I've heard of this company before, we'll just go with them, they must be good?
So I think the challenge that most contractors face is they get caught up in the features. Oh, I need scheduling. I need time tracking. I need the ability to have a customer sign electronically. When the reality of choosing a system is actually, what are you struggling with today? Where do we find ourselves falling down? Is it the communication piece? Is it the profitability piece? Do we struggle knowing our committed costs? So decisions really should be based on, what are we struggling with that we need to fix? That ultimately should be the decision for any change, not just, I need these things to add to my already busy workflow. I need to add all these extra pieces, only to find out that it never actually solved the initial problem that we had where we started looking for those technologies. And the thing about technology is it's sexy, it's pretty, it's flashy. People get caught up in like, I see this dashboard and it looks great. I want my business to be on this dashboard. But they don't realize all the things that go in to making that dashboard look great. And that's really what, before you make any decision, you should really understand where are those areas that we're falling down, that we need to fill those gaps. And that's what the software is going to be there to help fill those gaps for you.
So tying this into profitability, then how have you seen restoration companies take the platforms that are right for them, adopt them appropriately, and how have you seen that truly help the bottom line, like revenue overall and then overall profitability in return?
So again, I touched on this in the initial question, which is that today transparency is the fundamental issue with profitability, is that a lot of companies don't know what their true costs are. And they don't have one place to looking to seeing what the truth is. They have time in one area and they have, payables in another. Someone's keeping track of sub-trade payments, that are on a list in somebody's office. And so one of the things that we've kind of looked at from a technology and from an accounting standpoint is this idea of organization and having one truth for all of your expenses and revenue, right? So that as someone who's a project manager or someone who's managing a job, I can only manage profitability if I know what all our committed costs are. And if I have to go 2 or 3 different places to find what that truth is, it makes my job more difficult because I don't know where this job stands. And a lot of times we see systems where, hey, I can capture this one cost for you, but you have to find the other pieces in other platforms. And oh, by the way, they don't talk together. So there's that challenge of, do I have one place that I can go looking to know that this is accurate and up to date?
Yes.
And so as technology grows and as there's more options out there, there'll always be these ideas where this technology can solve one problem, but it can't help us with the 3 or 4 other things. And so with, at least speaking from a PSA perspective, we've always tried to look at a way of how do we tie all this together? Because if I'm running, a retail business, I'm not having all of my charges go in one account and another software keeping track of all my sales. Everything's in one spot, receivables and payables. Why is it different, on the restoration side? We really need to know what our committed costs are. And I know this could be a whole separate podcast, but what are our overheads? Because when we look at, a restoration business, it's not just the hourly employees, it's the salaried employees. It's all of these costs that go into answering phones and making sure someone's available after hours. And do those costs ever find their way onto a job? And so these are things that, again, as much as we're a software vendor, we're also trying to educate people on, like, what are all of these costs that we either see or don't see that are showing up, on our jobs on a day-to-day basis.
Yes. Okay. That makes perfect sense. So on the flip side, let's say a owner goes to a trade show and finds a new software and thinks, yep, we're going to do that, brings it home, but then they don't get good buy-in from the team. They don't do a good job onboarding. On the flip side, how can that negatively affect a company's ability to make revenue and profit? I would think that could be a major hurdle and cause bigger issues even than maybe not even having the software in the first place.
Totally. And I've run into this situation more times than not where we have companies who embrace these technologies. They don't get buy-in, which essentially means people aren't putting the data in. So that place that we go to look for truth, it's not the big picture. We don't see everything. And so we go to run those beautiful dashboards and we go to run those reports and nothing shows up. And we don't understand why, when I saw this working in that demonstration or at that trade show, why doesn't it look the same way for me? And in essence, software is not a magic wand. It's simply just a tool that helps organize and facilitate all of this information being collected together. And so the buy-in, again, is so fundamental in actually getting to leverage that software, where if you don't have the buy-in from absolutely everybody in the team, from the person uploading photos to the person keeping track of our spending on a day-to-day basis, essentially the information you're looking at is not true. It's false. And you're not going to be able to run your business. You're not going to be able to see your numbers. You're basically flying blind. And so what ends up happening is then people then say, well, this software doesn't work. It's not doing what it's supposed to. And they don't realize that we have this beautiful car, but there's no gas in it. And we can't get it to drive until we put all the things that we need to in it for it to work.
Yes. Okay. That makes good sense. I like your analogy there with the car. Okay. So before we wrap it up, so talk a little bit about what software features and components are the most important, would you say, when it comes to profitability and growth? What are some specific features or maybe integrations, whatever that may be, that software should have for companies that are really concerned about driving their profitability and growth?
So one of the things that I learned coming into this industry with an accounting background is that with accounting, really the fundamental piece of accounting is that it's a record to record what happened in the past. So when you think about, again, profitability and running a job that may take only 3 or 4 days, if I can't see my numbers because they haven't been either A, entered into accounting, or they're waiting for something to happen, like payroll to be run or a sub trade to be paid, just so I can see it, I have zero visibility. I'm running basically reactively to all the information that's coming in, and I can't see it in real time. And so the challenge again with software is you can have great integrations, you can have great tools, but if the information is delayed, you don't have the benefit of being able to drive profitability with that information.
Yep.
And so you do have to be careful. And I'm not going to say anything bad about any other accounting system, but you have to look at the philosophies of a lot of these accounting systems that are created. Is this something that was designed for construction or restoration in the sense where I can see committed costs daily? Or am I having to wait a week to 2 weeks to run payroll to know what my labor costs are? And those are things that, again, when we start to ask the questions, where are those gaps in our processes today? Is it that we can't see that real job costing? Is it that we don't have access to those labor dollars on a daily basis? Is that what's causing the problem for our team to be profitable? And if the answer is yes, you want to find a solution that gives you the opportunity to start to recognize these things in real time. And there are tons of softwares out there that, again, are designed for restoration and construction and understand the idea of seeing that committed cost. And so these are things that, again, with integration, obviously it's important because I think that there is a lot of tools out there that are required in this industry to be used. And so if your software doesn't communicate with them, what that leaves you is these gaps where you now have to add information 2 or 3 times and you're paying for administrators. And as you scale and grow, you have to add more people to keep up with the demand for entering all this information.
Yes.
So these are things that I think that should be considered ultimately in when deciding in technology, and if profitability is a piece that I think every business should focus on, because I mean, without profitability, there is no business.
No.
And certainly with the way things are going in the industry and pricing skyrocketing and inflation, it's even more important to really know what are your true costs. Do we know what it costs to produce those things so that we can position ourselves appropriately?
Yes. Perfect. Okay, Ryan, anything else that you want to add on profitability, software adoption, anything like that?
I just think the fundamental thing for profitability is just committing, whether it's an owner, general manager, director of operations, committing to setting the time aside to know what their costs are. Regardless of, as much as I love pushing technology, I think for a business to understand their numbers, whether you're doing it on a spreadsheet or as a software application, I think it's fundamentally important that it becomes part of the culture. Just like we put in our notes and our time cards, the dollars and cents are just as important. So I think that's a key piece to these discussions, obviously with you, Michelle, from a standpoint of if you don't know your numbers, make that a priority for figuring that out, whether it's this year or next year, to really kind of redirect your business back into a channel that's going to make you successful.
Yes, perfect. Well, Ryan, thank you very much for your time and your wisdom. As always, it's always a pleasure having you on the show. I hope you have a great rest of your work week.
Perfect. Well, thanks for having me, Michelle. Really appreciate it.